And what she did was when she got into the business, she told herself, when it stops being fun and it starts to become work, that's when I'm out of here.
Welcome back to M's Adventures. I said I wasn't going to do an intro for this one because it took so many takes, but I am. So this time I caught up again with Jason, the nude art model, and we caught up on his art gigs and also on his midlife crises and on many other things. This was kind of a long chat, so I'm going to split it into about 30-minute segments, so who knows how many episodes this will be. Enjoy. So we're going to record on the voice messages and see if this will work. Because I think the voice messages don't get interrupted by people sending me text messages, I'm hoping. Although I will put it on airplane mode. This is actually the third time we're recording this, because it seems like the first time the recording was terrible because the ambient noise was too loud. And this time I decided I'd be clever and use the video, and that didn't work because people messaged me. And so now I'm just going to go on and ask other questions. Here we are again with Jason. I'm not going to ask him how he did because I'm going to talk about it just myself into the microphone. But the part we want to know is, so now you're slimmer, meaner, fitter, all that good stuff. You've done some other gigs. Oh, you were telling me about so you're gonna do a writing class.
Yep.
And it's gonna be something creative. It's gonna be something at the Bethesda Writers Center. It's only gonna be once a week or something?
I think it's
once
like
a month?
I think their classes are like once a week for 4 weeks. I mean, they might have something more frequent, but that would be perfect for me.
And does it have? Well, you don't know this yet, but maybe it has sort of a project idea to it. Like after the 4 weeks, you will have the first chapter to your great American novel or an outline.
That I'd have to take a look at. When I first started thinking about this, I emailed a friend of mine who does a lot of writing. So I asked her about it. She said, hey, they're very reputable, so I recommend them. But she did say because a lot of it's a workshop format, what you need to do is find a couple people in class whose opinions you respect. And those are the ones you want to take the feedback from, as opposed to like other people who, and she didn't really get into it, but I think she kind of implied there's other people who either are curmudgeonly or maybe jealous of you or something like that, where they wouldn't be giving honest advice from the heart. They would either be like sabotage or, oh, everything is perfect regardless. Like, no, your plot development, character development was a little bit weak in this chapter and you could have done, that's what it was. Hence another reason I just think some of that, it just gets facilitated so much easier if it's in person.
Yeah.
I think there's certain energy that you just don't get from like a Zoom or a Teams call.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, presumably, the other people in the class are also amateurs, so they may not have as good advice.
Because it's the room, depending on the class, I could see it, depending on the class and the subject matter, I could see there being like a cross-section of people's skills. Like you might find a person who used to be like a newspaper journalist who just, hey, everything I wrote was factual. I want to get to some creative writing.
Yeah.
But they would have a very good, solid writing base. They've been published. You might have like other people who maybe they were a retired school teacher, college professor, someone who they would have some skill. They just want to kind of hone a craft. Others, like you said, could be rank amateurs, and this is just, something inspired them to get the writing bug, and so this is their first foray out into that world. But again, they're amateurs, or like people who do technical writing and vice versa, or people who do like creative writing and now want to learn more precise technical writing. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see who the other people are, because they could be very serious people who are there to get feedback on a novel they've already written, or a play, or something like that. Or they could be just like, oh, my mommy says I'm a good writer.
No, right, exactly. Oh, no, and so she did caution me that, like, hey, she didn't say it like this, but like not everybody may have your best interests in heart. So kind of find out the people who
Yeah.
use whose counsel you value.
Yeah.
And those are the people that you want to maybe take their advice a bit more
Right.
seriously.
Right. But I don't think that there are any malicious people there.
Oh, I
That would be
don't
that would be a very strange form of sadism.
Oh, I think so, but you always get those people whose maybe opinions are a bit more catty than they need to be.
Oh
or,
yeah,
you
where
know,
they're like, "Oh, you think you're a writer?
yeah, well, yeah, I tell you, well, I back in,
I've already published a book."
yeah, what have you done? Yeah, you're the, being kind of like,
I've already got a byline.
right, exactly, like my stuff doesn't stink, so, this is anything, that I think is more of that as opposed to like an actual
Okay.
genuine troll who's just looking
Yeah.
to start
all right.
stuff.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I'm like. Oh, I don't think that would be anybody. That would be a lot of effort to go. But maybe that's the kind of thing. If you like to pick on other people, then
Yeah, because
pay to go do something where they let you pick on them.
But and here's the thing, I think if you're involved in any of the creative arts, I think for somebody malicious out there, they know they could twist the dagger so it really hurts, because when you're doing something creative, you're giving a part of yourself, whether it's acting.
You're exposing yourself.
Right, exactly. Acting, modeling, writing.
Yeah.
To take, it's one thing for constructive criticism if it's warranted.
Sure.
There's always going to be that person who gives their advice whether anybody needs it or not, or whether anybody wants it or not. That critique could be a bit more barbed, or people might be a bit more sensitive, even if the person's not trying to be rude. It's just saying, hey, I read your story and I thought it was kind of weak, and your characters are interchangeable with one another. There's nothing unique about them, and I worked so hard on that story, and
Yeah.
So and
If you sign up for a class, you got to be signed up for criticism.
exactly. Same thing with like if I were to do acting. Hey, wait a second, I wasn't really believing that, or
Yeah.
Hey, the way you presented yourself in your head might have seemed one way, but that's not
Right.
what we're getting when we're seeing
Right.
it on the stage.
So so in terms of fulfilling your midlife crisis, you're gonna work you're already doing the modeling again.
Yep.
And you had 3 gigs. It's a pretty good amount. You don't want it to be a daily grind.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I think we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it in the previous attempt or if we talked about it at another one. There was a point, it was about a decade ago, where I was working so much I got burned out
As a model.
as a model. Because again, I have my 9-to-5 job and I'm doing this on evenings and weekends. So frankly, I think I was getting burned out because I didn't have a whole lot of free time. To the point where it started to honestly feel like a job. And it was like and I hate to say it, but I almost in some cases found myself getting resentful.
Resentful?
My thought.
Resentful of whom? Or
Well, it was
what?
more like when I started this, it was like, I don't have to do this. I get to do this.
Yeah.
When it started to come full circle and be, I have to do this, then I'm like, okay, you know what? And I never canceled on any gigs. I never gave less than 100%. But it went from, I'm dealing with all this stuff at work and whatever, but I get to model tonight, as opposed to like, I just want to go home and drink a beer, and like, oh crap, I have to model tonight. And that's where, and I worked for some great
Well, then
people.
it becomes a job.
That's exactly what it was.
Because most people have jobs that are not what they really want to do.
Right.
They just do it because they have to.
And I remember reading something somewhere, and I believe the woman was an adult movie star in the 70s. And what she did was, when she got into the business, she told herself, when it stops being fun and it starts to become work, that's when I'm out of here. And then she realized, okay, so this way I'm not sticking around 10, 15 years past my prime doing something I clearly just don't want to be doing. And I thought that was just such great advice. I'm like, okay, you're right. It's when you lose the spot. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know, like if you were to work in like a champagne factory or an ice cream factory, would you get jaded to the point where it's like something that's a treat? Now you're potentially having every day it loses its luster.
It should be fun. Every day should be fun.
Right. And so it was, and what didn't really help were some of the places I went to were kind of far out, like Rockville, Alexandria.
Right, because at that time you were just you were saying yes to everything.
Oh yeah, because that's at that point it was like,
You figure I will do that so I can get experience.
Yeah, it was a hustle.
Work.
It was a hustle mindset. The fact that, like, especially again, because male models just here are typically not in as much demand. It was like I kind of felt like, okay, as long as I have a volume of good, steady work from a diverse group of institutions, then I'm always going to be working. Maybe not as much as I want to, but enough. There'll be a critical mass of people who remember me and say, "Oh yeah, we ought to have Jason back this semester for a drawing class I'm doing."
Yeah.
That right.
You're building your reputation. You want to be known.
Right. And there were like things like, I'll be honest, like there were times where it would be winter and there would be a portrait class in Rockville, so I would schlep from, downtown DC to Rockville, and then from there have to take a bus. So again, it's not like a huge trip, but it's time out of your day, and you get home very late at night. And that was the other thing. As awesome as my last class was, which when we reconvene this, we'll talk more about it. By the time I got home, I want to say it was well after 10 o'clock. And because it was a last minute gig, I actually planned to go to the grocery store when I left work before I got the gig. So I'm like, well, great. I got to go grocery shopping tomorrow. All the grocery stores are going to be closed.
Yeah.
So not a huge burden, but at the same time too, she realized, okay, I'm getting home late at night, and I'm still trying to work like from 7 to 3, 7:30 to 3:30. You don't really get that much rest because, for me, when I get home from a gig, or even like when I travel, I can't get to bed right away. I've got a lot of energy that just has to kind of dissipate itself naturally. Okay. I want to have a beer. I want to, have at least a small little snack or something like that. There's other things I want to do, but it's like I don't want to come home and just go right to bed unless I'm tired.
Everyone needs to
that wind down.
To wind down.
That.
So and you're not doing yoga or meditation?
No.
Okay.
So that was part of it where I realized, hey, you know what? I had a great time tonight. Moving forward, I just want to be cognizant of how I pace myself. Washington Studio School has been great to me. I do need to see if the Hillier is up and running again. I think they are, but the model coordinator who used to work there, he actually teaches at Washington Studio School now, so he's not plugged in there anymore. So I need to find out who the coordinator is there. Then there's another place I worked with Sarah once, Chaw in Capitol Hill, that I need to reach out to. In fact, I think I did reach out to the guy probably about a year ago. And then he wanted hey, can you send a CV and some pictures and things like that? I'm like, I don't really have a CV. I don't frankly want to do one, but it's, I can understand why some people would want to see one, if for nothing else, it weeds out the people who aren't going in with it with good intentions.
Yeah.
Because you can't fake that sort of thing. You can't, you get a CV, I'm like, hey, I've never heard of any of these schools. I've never heard of any of these instructors. Right. This is a very close community where you can't fake that sort of thing. And so I think part of it might be a way just to screen people out, find out who's serious, or even if they're a serious model, they don't have a CV. I'm just asking that person to go ahead and spend an hour or two on the weekend to go type something up. It's like, it's not and this is something I talked over with my friend, the one who I had a great phone conversation with. She gave me tons of good advice, where I promptly had brain freeze and threw out the notebook accidentally that I kept all that good information she gave me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she had a couple of good ideas, but she did say, hey, if nothing else, it forces you to make sure you're not really forgetting anything major in your career, even if these people don't teach or hold class anymore, or if they're even in the area, people are going to have heard of some of them. It's just a good way to contextualize, or if it's a place where you frankly, we don't really need any models or whatever. Well, hey, just look at my CV. Oh, wow, this person's been accomplished and things like that. Okay, hey, you know what? Forget a cancellation. I'll call you up.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to do this week. And
actually mentioning the CV, because of course you're only going to do a tailored CV referring to the places you worked and what kind of art model you are. You can do short poses, long poses,
Right.
nude, all that stuff. And then, but then in terms of, you want a portfolio too. But it's a little bit difficult. I would like a box, yes.
Box? Okay.
And another box.
Boxes?
Or maybe a box just for them together.
Let's see. Any dessert today?
I don't know, because I had all the desserts last time. I had
we still the same desserts, so the butterscotch pudding, apple cobbler, and the chocolate chip cookies. They're all good.
Yeah, but I had them all. Well, not the cookies, but they're cookies.
You can have them again. I eat every day cookies.
Do you eat all the desserts every day?
Not all of them. I eat like cookies.
You eat one dessert every
Yeah,
day?
I mean just one.
The cookies are not just a dessert item. Cookies are a all-day item.
I mean I eat one once a day.
You eat once a day?
Just like one and once a day.
One cookie once a day?
One cookie once
And then you fast the rest of the time.
I eat more food, but like
It's not a cookie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually I have ice
All right,
cream.
I'll order the cookies then. Yes.
Sharing.
Oh, none for me. I'm full. That was a good
Yeah.
burger. That was really
The
good.
Cookies with the ice cream, right?
Yeah, the ice cream is homemade, right?
Yeah, I know the ice cream is not really like the homemade, so it's like
Oh,
we
thank
buy
you.
the vanilla ice cream and we mix it with the chocolate chip cookies here. It's kind of like a half homemade.
Half homemade, half.
Is it an ice cream sandwich?
No, it's just like the ice cream on the top. The ice cream, it's
Uh-huh.
like vanilla ice cream. It's mixed with the chocolate chips. Chocolate chip cookies actually.
So it's just a big mess?
I mean, it's like 3 cookies, the vanilla ice cream on the top. You can make a big mess, or you can do the ice cream on the side. It's up to you.
Can I just get a cookie?
How many?
Just one cookie?
Just one cookie?
All right.
No ice cream?
No, just try one cookie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. In a box.
Yeah, sure. I'll back it.
Yes. Okay, where were we? All right, so you need a portfolio.
Yes.
Anything artsy, you need a portfolio. If you're a model, like a fashion model, you need a book portfolio. If you're an actor, you got a portfolio. Nowadays, I assume they have them on their tablets
Right.
and they whiz through them, 3D, whatever. Have you got one of those?
No, I do have like some pictures of drawings of me that I've collected over the years. Frankly, though, the vast majority of those are so long in the tooth that I just,
Old?
yeah. Some of them I'm not. Some of them when I took early on, I'm heavy set, but not as bad as I was at my worst. So I think those are still representative enough. But I have lost weight. Frankly, I would just like more of them. And this gets to what we were talking about. We were emailing earlier, where I was thinking, well, wait a second. If maybe I could talk to some of the professors that I work with and say, hey, what would your day rate be for doing a 3-hour drawing of me? Pay you whatever you want. You sketch me, whatever. You had said, thank you. You had said, well, what about taking photos for some of the students?
Yeah.
And I thought that had entered my mind.
Yeah, why can't you ask the students if you can take a photo for your portfolio?
Especially if it's academic, there's a couple things.
Okay.
I'm not going to take pictures of everybody's stuff. Only
don't have
stuff
to.
that I like. But I don't want to make some of the students feel inadequate, like, oh, he didn't ask me to take a photo of my
I see,
drawing.
okay. But
so
you
mine
could
is
just take a
bad.
photo of everybody's, but then not use them.
And the other thing is, and because this actually, I don't want to say something similar happened, but it could have gone down that way. There was a drawing somebody did of me years ago, and I really liked it. But he definitely took some creative liberties. Not a lot. He made me look, his sketch made me look like a 19th century German philosopher or composer. Like
Yeah, I
a very
remember that.
Beethoven type look.
Yeah.
And it looked close enough to me, and I wanted to go over and I was a fairly new model at the time, and part of me wanted to go over and say, hey, I really like that drawing, but I said,
Yeah.
let me just not do that. Let me stay in my lane.
Yeah.
So the professor comes over, looks at it, and says, okay, Frank, this is really good, but does it really look like Jason? Kind of shaking his
Yeah.
head, and he was like, nah, it doesn't. So if I gave him praise, or if I wanted to take his photograph,
Yeah.
before the professor spoke with them, I negated everything that professor
Yeah,
was going to say.
right, okay.
Because he's going to think, well, I don't care what Professor Smith says. This guy liked it.
Yeah.
That's my target audience. I could, through no ill intent of my own, I could be possibly sending mixed messages that I figured I would want to
Okay.
sidestep. Now, if it's a drawing group, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
And I was always just a little. And I talked with my art model friend, the one who works at Washington Studio School, and she and I had the same kind of belief, where it was kind of like we're trying to overcome maybe our reluctance to ask people for photos of their drawings, just
Yeah.
because, again, but I didn't, when I took that one photo, the one I put to my Facebook, that was from last week's class, I flat out asked her, like, okay, you know what? I didn't even realize she was working in color until I saw her kind of put it over against the wall.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you did all of that in 10 minutes. Like, may I take a photograph of that, please? And she was honestly like, not even self-deprecating. She's like, this thing is like, I didn't think it was that good, but yeah, sure, if you want to, So I took it. And
Yeah.
loved that. I sent it to a couple of my relatives. They're like, oh, this is really.
And that
really
was the professor? That was
Yes.
the teacher?
Yeah. So she did a
Instructor.
10-minute demonstration sketch.
Right.
Like I said, I had no idea she was working with color at all.
Right. Yeah, because the flesh tones were nice. The drawing was a little off.
Oh, well, yeah, it was.
But
for
it was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it was my back, I couldn't see that she was using color or anything like that. So, yeah, some of the proportions were off, but, again, 10-minute demonstration
But the color
sketch.
was very nice.
Yes, it was. And for her to do all that in 10
Yeah, the
minutes.
tones were excellent.
So, I'd love to get more pictures like that.
Yeah.
Not.
We don't need that many.
No, I just need like between 5 and 10, and frankly, closer to 5, I think would be fine. Just one or two portraits, maybe 1 or 2 standing poses from different.
I would say you need a portrait. That one, the 10-minute whatever. But then also some of the quick charcoal drawings when you're moving.
Oh yeah, and I think I
That
actually
you need to do.
and I may still have some of those from ages
Right.
ago from a class I did.
Right, because that's another thing that people who are instructors are going to want to be able to see, that you can do movement, the really
Right.
fast ones that they're going to make people do.
Yeah, and that honestly I get the most praise for is the gesture poses, where I think not for the second class I worked this semester because it was a portrait, but for the first and last ones I did where there were like poses of varying lengths, when I would do that first kind of super set of 20 minutes worth of 1-minute gesture poses, I did have people say, that was really good, yeah, you get some good poses.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, you know what, I like it because it forces me to be creative, and with these gesture poses, I can make more dynamic poses because if I overextend myself, I've just got to hold it for a minute or two. And then, I
Yeah.
can go back to like if I did something where, let's say, my legs were really far apart. It's putting, torture on my hamstrings, my quads. Okay, well, I stick it out for a minute, and then the next pose I do is seated.
Yeah. So now every class, do they sort of go in the same cycle? Is there like a warm-up, gestures, seated, longer?
Typically, it goes for. Now, if we do like a multi-session drawing, then generally, I don't think there's any warm-ups or anything. You're working from one long pose for, 3, 4, 5 classes.
Okay.
Typically, with any drawing class,
Again,
yeah,
where you're doing it 20-minute hold, 10-minute break
yeah, we do.
for longer poses.
Yeah, we'd start out with some gesture poses for about between 10 and 20 minutes, take a break, then, hey, let's do some 5s, some 10s. Some places do 15, but usually from there, those people move on to 20 plus
Yeah.
minutes. And then that's what you do to fill out the rest of the class.
Right.
So, but that's generally what to expect.
Yeah. Okay.
There was one class I did where we did 5-second gestures. And
5 seconds.
And I think the rationale was, it was at the it was in Roslyn. What was it called? Did they use like the Art Institute of Washington? Like I think they were bankrupt and they all shut down. But they used to have art institutes all across the country.
Yeah.
Well, this professor, it was definitely the first time that students were working from
Yes.
the live nude form. So I think what his goal was to desensitize people, because every time you started a drawing, you were basically starting
they're
another
thinking
one.
too hard.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're not
It's like, just, you got to get at it. Just do it.
right. So at that point, you don't have like the nervous jitters, the nervous giggling. You don't have that because, and he was like, not like a drill instructor. He's like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, next one. So by this time, when he finally said,
That's
okay,
true.
minute long, okay, we're gonna do a minute pose, you could hear everybody going, I get to draw. I get.
But
and
it's
then
also a good icebreaker.
Right.
Because it gets people energized.
And then at that point, the people were thinking like, oh my god, I'm here with like a live nude band who I've never met before. It's been like, oh, thank goodness I can draw, which was really neat. So there was definitely a method to the madness that I think worked out rather well.
Yeah,
but it was
that's
so
good.
funny because we were walking into the class. I had gotten changed in the bathroom, so I'm walking down the hall with students all over the place in my bathroom, like something out of a nightmare. So I talked to the professor. I remember it clear as the bell. He starts to open the door, and he's like, I told you this is their first time working through the live food model, right? And I was like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
And I don't think he wasn't trying to be.
No, he just
rude. He was
forgot.
just like, I thought, right. So I was like, okay, no pressure.
So then he had
no
to
pressure.
warn them,
Yep.
prep them,
Yeah.
so they're not giggling. Yes,
Oh,
one
right.
cookie. Yes,
So I think.
one cookie. I'm gonna take a photo of my one cookie with, I guess there's a white chocolate in there too.
Yeah. So, and I think the reason he was like that was because
Oh, I microwaved it.
the Art Institute of Washington was a little different. Like, I think a lot of those people could go in there not having much in the way of experience, whereas a lot of people, when I worked for the Corcoran, they even had a pre-college class for high schoolers, but you also had people there that had still been drawing through high school, and they had worked with the nude model before, so there was nothing. They totally were respectful of it.
Okay.
In fact, I want to say that when I worked with the early college and like the late high school pre-college session,
Yeah.
those were some of the most grateful students because they realized, hey, look, this is an experience that we wouldn't
Very
normally
rare.
get. So they were, I think, very appreciative
Yeah.
of that. I remember even when I worked a great kid at the Corcoran's downtown location, which is now our GW. And I remember I was just walking out of class and I was bumping into students in the hallway. They were coming back from a smoke break. I was leaving to go home. And they just came up into the hallway, just started like thanking me and said, hey, those were some great poses, or like, yeah, you scared me because you were standing so still and then you blinked and I kind of got freaked out, It's kind of like, I'm like, they clearly appreciate this, which was, and I remember because the professor had me in the most basic pose. He's like, look, I haven't really worked in the live new model before, so I don't care if you stand around like you're waiting for a bus. And I think what happened was I got on the podium and I didn't even move. I just kind of stood up, like getting ready to get into a pose. And he's like, oh, that's perfect. Like he wasn't even like, okay, I can do this.
Right.
So it was, again, to get them, just to get the shock factor, out of them. As opposed to like, I'm not worried about technical proficiency. I'm not looking for an interesting pose. I just want to, for lack of a better word, desensitize people.
Yeah, let them just be, let them get, but I assume that most people, once you start drawing somebody, you kind of don't notice what they look like anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you're focusing
you're looking
on
for the actual thing you're doing.
Right, muscle definition, depth, shape.
Right.
You're not. It's almost like the model at that point. It's like you're looking at them, but you're not looking at them holistically, but as parts of the greater whole.
And I don't know if you're aware of how. I don't know if you've taken any art classes.
No.
So I don't know if you're aware of how rare it is to actually get a human being to draw, because so many art classes, especially beginner art classes, but even later on, they're drawing really boring and often hideous stuff. Because I remember one of my beginner classes, it was drawing a traffic cone and some styrofoam blocks, because the teachers just wanted shapes,
right,
to teach us so we could practice doing basic shapes before we tried to realize that a traffic cone is also like doing a woman in a dress. basically it's the same shape.
Right.
But they wanted us just to practice, and we were all like, but these things are hideous.
Right.
I'm not motivated to.
Right.
I got to use this as my Christmas present for my parents. How can I give them this hideous cone?
Right, because you figure even if you're drawing like still life from like a vase with like fruit or something, you can
Yes.
sex it up, for lack of a better word. When you're dealing
Yeah.
with a human, that's definitely
A
something
human is
that
much
you've
more
got.
interesting. Yeah.
Right. You know?
And it's got a nice tradition to it too.
Well, exactly.
The
Exactly.
whole old art tradition of drawing the human figure, which is beautiful.
And that was one of those things where when I first started, I really didn't know, because again, I don't have an art background. It's like, well, the reason why they must be drawing from the nude model is because they're just throwing it back. It's tradition. It wasn't until I did a class for middle schoolers where they had me, wear like a t-shirt and, like yoga short or like shorts. Where the professor, we did drawings, the professor put them up, and he said, okay, well, like here's where, well, you can't really see his sternum because he's got a t-shirt on, but this is where this would be, this is where that would be. And like, that was the aha moment for me. Like, okay, there's a reason why we do this, because there's certain things you just don't get from the clothed form.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to, people, I think there are even art classes where they draw, they have just the bones of a human in the skeleton.
Oh, we had I posed with a skeleton the second class. His name was Stan. Apparently he has a name. And it was actually, the professor said it was a cast of a real life skeleton.
Okay.
So it wasn't just like a computer. And that thing's probably like 20, 30 years old, I'm sure. It probably older than that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because people, and then also the ones where it's just the muscles,
right. Oh yeah.
right? Because they want you to know what's underneath
Right.
the skin if you're going to draw them nude. And again, if you're going to draw them with clothes on, you need to know what they look like underneath.
Right, so you can kind of,
Yeah.
so it looks a little bit more lifelike and
Yeah.
not as stiff. And
Yeah. So for the midlife crisis, you are waiting on the acting, amateur acting, because you got a lot to do.
Yep.
And so you're going to do the writing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to start going to the gym more, going to the gym once a week, but you're going to go more often.
Yep.
Have you always been a clothes horse? Were you always interested in what you look like? Thanks for listening to this episode of M's Adventures in Storytelling with Jason the Nude Art Model. I leave you there hanging, whether or not he's into his clothes or not, so that you'll listen next time when we talk about clothing, we talk about body image, I think we get into dating, all kinds of things. So if you like just listening to us, or you're just Jason's cousins being supportive, but also listening to us as we continue our dinner, please listen next time. And if you want to listen to how Jason got into nude art modeling, please go back to the episodes from 2023. There are about 5 episodes where we talk about how he got into nude art modeling. And if you want to hear my interviews with other people, please listen to them on madventures.me, on YouTube, and also wherever you get your audio podcasts. Thanks for now. Ciao.